it's Ellen here at Yarn Doc, and I am doing my first ever hook review. As you know, I'm a loyal Susan Bates girl, usually, so I don't buy other hooks. Sorry, but it's been 25 years since I bought something other than a Susan Bates hook. However, I know that plane travel has gotten more complicated lately, and I've been hearing more stories about hooks and needles being confiscated by security. And the airlines, not the airlines, but the airports have the caveat that yes, you can take crochet hooks and knitting needles on board a plane. And most of the airlines have that policy, but they also have the caveat that if a security officer believes it to be dangerous or a weapon or yada yada yada, whatever they think, they have the discretion to take the needles or hooks. So I was recently flying to Canada. It's a long flight, and so I definitely wanted to be able to stitch on the plane. And I didn't want my good hooks, because they are very expensive to buy here in Europe, to be taken. So I went on Temu and found a couple of sets that were very inexpensive, very inexpensive. I didn't pay more than €5 for any of these sets. So if they got taken, it wouldn't be a catastrophe. And I tried to buy plastic sets because they were I heard that they were less likely to take plastic than metal, because metal is more associated with weaponry. So I have 3 different sets that I tested out. I worked full projects up with them, and one of these sets I did take on my flight. So I have, the first set is this one, and actually I don't have all the hooks. I actually have 2 of them in projects, or at least in project bags. So it came as an 8 hook set. It is plastic. It is fully inline. They look very much like my Susan Bates hooks. And it goes from I think from a 2mm up to a 6.5mm. No, it goes from a 2.5 up to a 6.5mm. I can see what's missing. My 4 and my 5 are missing. So try again, Ellen. It goes from a 2.5 up to a 6. So from 2.5 to 6. The thing, they have a really nice feeling handle. This is one of the nicest feeling handles I've ever felt. It is a little bit rubbery, but not in an off-putting way. And it has a little bit of give. So you're not pushing your thumb or your hand against a fixed hard surface the whole time. I don't know what this would be like. Pencil hold, I guess, is like this, right? So I guess you're okay with that, with the flat point. How do I hold my hook? Now I'm like, how do I hold my hook? I hold my hook like this. So that flat part is in a good spot for me. I have little munchkin hands. So I don't know if they would be long enough if you have big hands. And what I'm concerned about is, you know, this one's a 6. Your 6mm is around this part, not this tapered part. So if you're working from the tapered part, you're actually using a much smaller size than is intended. It is only this little bit here that is your 6mm. I think it might make something like a bobble stitch very challenging. So it looks, the head of it looks very much like my beloved Susan Bates, but the shaft is not. So we'll see what those are like. And then over here, I should have taken them all out, I'm sorry. I just was keeping them in the bags they came in to keep them organized. These don't have the same issue that the others did. They have these really pretty handles, but it's quite textured. So if you have any sensitivity, every one of those grooves that are there to give it the shine and the crystal appearance is actually grooved. So you're going to have a lot of feels on your hands. Texture doesn't usually bother me. So I think I'd be okay with it. But if you have any kind of sensitivity to that, these are definitely not the hooks for you. These ones are similar in that they go from 2.5 to 6 millimeter. Also were 8 hooks in the set. I still have 1 hook with the project that I'm working on. They have a nice long shaft. You could get a really big bobble, popcorn, whatever onto that shaft. So that is one of the good things about it. The sizes are clearly written as they are on these. And these ones are a little more protected. Like both are just printed on. So at some point they will rub off. But they have, on these ones, put the size in a little indentation. So you're not always having your hand on it and it's not getting friction to rub off. This seems to have something similar, but that's not really indented. It's pretty flat with the rest of the handle. And that, for me anyway, is right where the base of my hand sits. So it is going to be getting, rubbed as we go. I don't know that, I will confess, I'm not a big plastic hook person. I think they have much more drag and sometimes they squeak, and if I don't have anything on, which is rare when I'm stitching, I usually have music or I'm watching YouTube or audiobook, something is usually going on, which would drown out that squeak, squeak, squeak. But if it's quiet, I do find it a little annoying. So I don't tend to use plastic hooks for a lot of projects, but if you're just starting out and you want something, if you want to try a tapered hook, for example, if you've always worked a tapered hook or an inline hook, the opposite of whatever you've worked with, spending less than €5 for a set that you can see what that style is like could be worth it before you invest in a hook you might not like. That's the... and these ones, I don't know what I was thinking when I bought these ones. I really don't, but I reviewed them anyway. They're tapered hooks. They are tapered hooks. And there are many variations on these 3 on Temu from the different wholesalers, and you'll see basically the exact same ones, maybe in different colors, different prices for sure. So I thought these were fairly representative of what I see a lot of on there at a very low price point. And so I do have tapered hooks, and I can work with tapered hooks. I learned that. I started on tapered hooks, on Ace tapered hooks set from my mother, which she found for me on this recent trip to Canada. She had the case and just had set it aside on the bed I was going to sleep on. And So that was a fun little trip down memory lane on that trip. But I knew I could work with them because I had worked on a project with these hooks, and I was actually concerned. You know, when you get used to a hook and a style, trying to pick up what is the complete opposite of what you've worked with for so long, in my case, I was nervous I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to work with it, but it was fine. It was fine. And I should have filmed this intro, and I thought I had filmed this intro, but I didn't film this intro. So yes, I have actually worked with all these hooks already, but I'm trying to do it like I didn't. But every time I say something, I'm like, oh, but mention that. No, not yet. So we'll get to that. But these have a nice rubber grip. I think if your pencil hold, it's in a good spot for you. It's a good length. It goes in like that, right? So you be okay. Also, for those of you who do it like me, it's in the right spot for me. Though that handle, again, I really do have little munchkin hands. And it is, I feel like it's not quite long enough for my hands. So do with that as you will. Also, a large range of sizes. I think this is all of them. Yeah, I have all of them in here. So from 6 mil to 2. So this one doesn't do half sizes. The only half size it does is a very unusual size, a 7.5. And that is maybe the hardest crochet hook size to find anywhere. And that might be what caught my attention and why I ignored the fact that they were metal and tapered. Because for a while I was really, really searching for a 7. And in inline, that is a very difficult size to find. Prim does make one. But again, the Prim hook there is a plastic hook. And I am just not sure I want to pay for a Prim hook in plastic. So with a 7 and a 7.5 in this set, I was thinking that is worth a try. So they are metal and they are tapered, but I will check them out. It also comes in other colors. There's a red one that reminds me of, is it clover that has those red, that's tapered with the red? I think it might be a clover style. Clover or more. I'm sorry, I'm totally talking out of others' experience at this point because I really have not worked with these hooks. So it will be a little harder for me to review this because I just don't have that extra experience behind, but I can tell you what it's like from my experience to work with them. This concerns me. This is right there on the hook. That is not going to last very long. So then you're in a situation where you're trying to decide, figure out what size your hook is. So I will show you a little bit about what it is like to work with each of these hooks, and I'll do them sort of one at a time. And then I'll come back and give you some final thoughts on which of these hooks will stay in my regular rotation. And there is a set that I will continue to use and that I found to be a very good alternative, maybe travel set of hooks for me. Okay, let's check them out. Okay, so I'm working here I've got sort of the beginnings of this shawl. Just using basically a basic virus stitch at the moment, though it's going to be I think a combination of virus and granny stitch. So something simple and easy to work on in the plain. The hook is working out fine too. For this, the shaft is not causing me any trouble. It's going pretty well. It moves pretty well. At the beginning, I was feeling like I was getting that sort of plasticky squeak. And actually, as I'm doing this, I can still feel that squeak. But once I was going and I had some TV on and I wasn't noticing it that much. Now, will I start to notice it again if I'm doing it for a longer period? Maybe. Maybe I would. But it is quite comfortable to hold. My fingers go on it in the right place. It is long enough that it sticks out the end of my hand, but I do have small hands. So I don't know if you had larger hands, if this hook would actually be long enough, because my hand is right at the end of that hook. So yeah, but I actually don't have really any complaints about the hook. I hope this is not as blurry as it looks to me, but I'm looking through the bottom of my bifocal contacts, and sometimes that can give a little bit of a blurry look to it. But yeah, I'm going to keep going. I just thought I'd give a little check-in as I've been working on. I think I've done 6 or 7 rows here. So had some opportunity to work with it and play with it. I did go down a hook size or 2, right? I've gone down to a 4mm and I started at a 5.5. It was just too big. It was too big. This is probably bigger than you would choose for most projects, but I really wanted it to be very lacy. And with cotton, cotton can be kind of stiff. So I did want to get a good drape on it. So I stuck with the 4mm. And for me, that turned out to be about what I wanted for the final fabric. So yeah, I'm going to keep going. And I will check back in with you a little later. Okay, my trouble is nothing to do with the hook. The hook is fine. My trouble is that I suddenly have a camera between me and my project. And I'm trying to, 1, see with these old eyes, and 2, just get used to doing it with a screen in between. It's just taking me a little bit. So, but the hook is fine. The hook is fine. It does have a little more drag than the metal ones that I'm used to working with. It's almost as if I can feel the squeak. I should turn the TV off if I'm talking to you. I'm watching the nerdy crocheter. Of course, right? Watching YouTube videos while I work here. But yeah, it's almost as if the hook squeaks, which it doesn't audibly with the acrylic and then the plastic hook. It's plastic rubbing on plastic. But it's almost like I can feel the squeak a little bit in my hands. This part does sort of give the tingles in the fingers. It does after a little while. And I'm really not sensitive to much. Though I do have some hooks that have things that will rub and irritate, and this one is not too bad because while there are a lot of dips and grooves on it, they're pretty smooth. Like, none of them are sharp. That's what I tend to react to, is sharp. But no, it is not as comfortable as something smooth. So that was pretty funny, as I was saying. It's not very comfortable, and she says, what a jerk. Well, I don't know if you can call a crochet hook a jerk, but yeah. I don't know that I want to use it for 8-9 hours straight on a plane. But I have done the whole front panel of this shirt. It's not flat because it's shaped for her lady parts. And then shaping up here for the shoulders. So it's supposed to not be flat, but I have done the whole basically front panel now with this hook. So I don't know how visible this is on the camera, but I think you can see that here it is not just shine, but that the enamel has actually worn off the hook, which you could expect from a painted hook. But that's as much as I've been using it. That's how fast that happened. So there, you can get a good view of that. So far, that's the biggest issue that I have with this particular hook. The handle is very nice and comfortable, but it's a little short for my hands, and I actually have little munchkin hands. So you can, let's see, the end is in there. And so if you actually had appropriate adult-sized hands, the handle is just going to be too short for you, especially if you want your thumbs on the thumb rest, which you would, because otherwise it would be uncomfortable. So those are the first thoughts on this. This is also going to come right off. So I'm being summoned. I will let you know as I go. Sorry about the shadows on my face. I can't get the lighting to work any better, no matter how much I dance around here. And I don't know. Maybe if I had some high-tech equipment or something, I don't know. I can't fix it. So just call me Shadow Lady. And I will tell you a little bit more about these hooks. But the first thing I want to say is this was originally going to be a much more in-depth hook review. I had 2 more hooks to review. I had ordered a set of bamboo hooks that were about €3. I'll put the listing on the screen here. And I couldn't work with them. And I think that in that case, it might have been my deficiency. They felt so light in my hand that I just couldn't do it. And they were not perfectly smooth. So they were sort of catching on the yarn that I was using. And it was just very strange. I sent them back because I couldn't work with them. You might have a different experience. If you like wooden hooks, you might really like them. I couldn't. I could not have worked up a project with it. And the other I sent back was the Furls dupe. I'm sure you have seen them. I had bought a 7mm because I am desperately trying to find a 7mm inline hook that is not plastic. Susan Bates, what's up, dude? Why is that? All of their sets go to 6.5 and then start again at 8. Like, can we have 7? Can we have a 7mm, please? Sorry. I climbed up on my soapbox. Not that I think anyone from Susan Bates will ever see this or be interested in my opinion, but I would probably buy enough of them to justify the cost of making that size. Why it doesn't exist, I don't know. But I had bought the Furls dupe in the 7mm for around €6, and compared to these others, that is a little bit pricier, especially considering it was just one hook. But when it came, it was so rough. You could see the indentations on the throat and in the hook, on the side of it, enough that it showed up in a picture before I turned the magnification on for the Temu return center. So it would have just ripped my yarn up trying to work with it. So that was extremely disappointing. I didn't even let it get near my yarn. It came in a lovely case with velvet and indented so that the hook fits snugly in there. And, you know, they really made it look like a fancy, expensive hook, but the hook itself was, in my opinion, unusable. So those two were sent back, and I wasn't even able to really test them. Again, the bamboo ones I think were largely my ineffectualness to actually handle that. I just needed more heft to my hook, and it did feel uncomfortable, and I did sort of feel it the yarn dragging on it, and I was afraid of my yarn getting ruined. And then the other one, I wasn't going to let anywhere near my yarn, no matter how high-end it looked. So the others, let me take them in order. These ones with the very short shafts. I worked that entire, all three projects were done completely with the hook. I was able to do all of the projects with the hook that I was reviewing with that project. So at no point did I switch to go to my trusty olds. I was able to complete the project. The problem here, I was pleased. This is the one that I used, the 4mm. The numbering is still quite clear on that hook, you can see. And the handle was very comfortable. I could hold it and work with it in my hand for hours. It fits me just exactly right. The issue is the shaft. Now, in the project that I was doing, I think the biggest stitch that I had was the double, because I was doing doubles, singles, chains. Can't think of anything else. I did do a sample, like a stitch sample with this, and I don't know what happened to that footage, and I frocked it in the yarn review. The bobble was difficult. It was difficult to do it because, I mean, you're working with that much of a shaft. So I was also using almost a lace weight yarn. They classify it as a superfine. I kind of think it's between a super fine and a fine, but I was using a thin weight yarn. If I'm using, you know, a 3 or a 4 weight and trying to put multiple loops on that, it's just not big enough. So depending on your project and the weight of yarn you like to use, these were a very good alternative. And I will spring the surprise, the reveal, these are the ones that I will keep as my travel set of hooks. I will use them regularly. The one thing I have noticed, and it's only on one size of them, but it is, I think it's the biggest, no, it's the 5.5. So a size that I do use quite regularly. And you see on both sides of that, there's a little nub of extra plastic, but right on that shaft part, like right on the part you have to have the loops on. And I don't know if I can just sand it down a little bit. I might even be able to do it with my nail here. But I've just noticed that there are some, it's also on this hook here, where the shaft meets the rubber. There's sometimes a little bit of a lip there. It's not an expensive hook, but it does far enough down that it wouldn't really interfere with anything, and it's quite soft. Like it's just extra plastic from when they put the handle part on. So these are quite good. I'm just gonna keep them probably, dropping hooks. Most of the time in my car in the glove box for, you know, break glass in case of emergency kind of situations. I'm the passenger stuck in a traffic jam. I like to keep yarn and hooks in my cars. And then if I'm flying, I will take these, because if they take them away from me, well, fine. But I will be conscious of it with what weight of yarn I keep in the car with these hooks, and then what projects I take to fly with. So I would give these hooks a B. You know, the shaft is a real issue. They are a little bit cheap in their make, but they're very functional, and I didn't have any problem working with it. Now, what was a little bit unfair to the other plastic hooks is I used cotton for the most part when I worked with this. I did do a little bit of stitching with an acrylic, and there is a little bit of that sort of plastic on plastic ness that does come out in these hooks too. Oh, I have a visitor. I'm back. I've dealt with the invasion. Mum life. So I think I have covered these, if I'm remembering correctly, and if not, I guess I'll correct myself in editing. These other plastic ones were not bad. Though by the end of the full shirt project, I was really, really ready to go back to my hooks. And in some ways, I did them a disservice by choosing an acrylic yarn to work with on them, because it was putting that plastic on plastic feel. And that was really what was getting to me at the end. After working with one of the hooks for a while, I don't know if it started to like wear a little bit on the finishing or that, but I was actually hearing the squeak from time to time as the yarn moved against it. And there was a lot more drag I found working with the acrylic on plastic than what I got on the other plastic hooks working with cotton. So I would say it's going to depend a lot on the fiber that you pair with the hook. And if you are using them to test out or as a starter kit or that, you're probably starting out with acrylic yarn too. So in that way, you're doing yourself a little bit of a disservice. The thing that got to me most was all of this ribbing that makes them so pretty. But actually, after I would crochet for like a couple of hours straight, I would have the indentation on my skin. So yeah, it's that. And as I gave away at the beginning, where is that hook? Oh, I think that hook is still in the project bag. I'm sorry. But as I gave away in the beginning, by the end of the project, I had basically lost the size on that hook. Now, these ones, and the other ones as well, the other plastic ones, are color coded. So you could, in theory, write down what color is what size. But like that's 5 and 6. I'm looking at them and I'm not sure I can tell the difference between those two colors. So in some ways, yes, you could write down, you know, what color is what size and refer to that if you have like a project journal or something like that to sort of keep track. But they will quickly, your sizes will quickly be gone from there. The shaft was good. I actually ended up doing a lot of projects with this hook because I did a very extensive review of that yarn, and I did 3 full projects, but I did use it for amigurumi. And I was worried about how, which one did I use? This one, I think, the 3mm. And I gotta get my face out of there so you can see. Like it's very, very, very thin up there and it's plastic. And I crochet tightly in general, and I was trying to do the amigurumi and do very tight stitches, and I was worried it was going to break, and it didn't. Obviously, it's here. So because it's a very hard plastic, you know, sometimes in a kit, particularly amigurumi kits, you get a plastic hook that comes with it, and those things tend to bend like crazy. This will not. This is hard plastic, so I wasn't worried about bending, but I was worried about breaking. But it handled that okay. The shaft was long enough to work a bobble stitch, just using that. That's the size, the length of your shaft. You know, so you've got quite a bit more space for multiple loops on your hook. So there are a couple of things that were a little bit better than the last set of hooks, but there were more things that weren't quite as good. Really the thing that this one has over the last set is the length of that shaft. If I could put the heads of these on the bodies of the other ones, I'd have pretty much the perfect plastic travel hooks. Alas, I don't think I'm going to do that because they are not quite as good. I'm thinking like B-, C+. They will go into my notions drawer, and let's be honest, I'm probably never going to use them again unless it's like I'm trying to get artsy for some kind of photograph and I want to lie the hook on it because they are attractive. So I would say B-, C+, that you can certainly work with them, but I really do think that handle is going to hurt your hands. And our last set, the metal guys. I am surprised, though I probably shouldn't be, because I only made a hat using this yarn, and I actually wasn't planning to do that project with these hooks, but it was almost an unspun yarn. Not great for crochet, better for knitting, and better when you are expecting an unspun yarn, which I really wasn't. So it would break very easily. My Susan Bates inlines were just going through it like crazy. So I thought maybe a tapered hook would work better with this, and it did. It really did. So that is why that became the project for these hooks. I was concerned about these because, as you can see, that is just printed. Sorry, I got to get my face out of there. That is just printed on there. And I was certain by the end of the first project it would be gone. And it wasn't. It's still there. But then again, I only made a beret. So it wasn't like a big project, like the hours that the others took me. It took me a couple of hours. And you don't have a lot of footage of that because I did most of it in the car on the way to the airport. And then I gifted it while I was in Canada. So that's why I don't have a lot. I know I have to get better at the blogging and the getting the footage along the way, but I tried. This comes out a little later than some of the other more vlog style videos that I've done, but it's really the first time I started that. These projects just took me a little bit longer to do. So it's coming out a little bit after them, but this was my first attempt. So be gentle with me. I also think I lost some of my footage somewhere, and I'm just an old lady trying to learn new skills with the technology side of it. I really don't have much to complain about with these hooks. If you like a tapered hook, this would be a good set. It is incredibly affordable. This set was under €3 for 8 hooks, right? Yes, 8 hooks for under €3. You can't beat that price. You can't. And these are probably the nicest of all the handles. They're very simple, but they're soft, they're rubbery, they're a little short. That is a downside. They are a little short, I think. But maybe I'm just so used to those great big long Susan Bates ones that I don't have a sense, because they are about the same length as a clover. I did look that up because I know that many people who like tapered hooks really like those clovers. So I did look up the length, and they do seem to be about the same length. It was pretty good. The shaft is not a bad length on them. I gotta get my face out of there. Keep trying to show you stuff. I'm sorry they're hard to see because it's black and it's weird lighting in here, but you do have a very decent size shaft on that. I was working with a much thicker yarn on this project, and I had that was not my problem on this. In fact, the hook was not my problem on that project. The hook actually made that project possible. So, you know, I am concerned that numbering is going to come off, but it hasn't so far. But unlike the others, they're all the same coloring. However, it does look, let's see if you can see, like there is a hole through them. I almost think that you could thread a thread through them and color code it that way. So I think this could be a really good starter kit. And I'm trying to not let my own bias against tapered hooks affect my review of these hooks. So I would actually give these hooks an A-. Yeah. But they're not going to be my travel hooks. And they're not going to be my emergency in the car hooks. They are going to go into that notions drawer. And if I did need a tapered hook, I would pull these out. And on that day, doing that project, I really thought, I'm going to try a tapered hook. And I have done that with yarns that I find to be very splitty. I will sometimes switch from an inline to a tapered. And my tapered hooks are just, I'm just seeing, oh, I think they are here. They're just straight metal. They look very much like, oh, there it is. I think they're ace hooks. But they're just, and once you get used to sort of a soft grip, you want a soft grip. I want a soft grip. Yeah. One of the only 7mm that I could find was tapered. And it's okay. It works okay. I just prefer the other. So are they a good dupe for a clover? That is really difficult for me to say. I've never worked with a clover. I think they might be. I would really encourage somebody who is a clover user to try them and see. But I think this could be a really good starter set if you wanted to get started on using a tapered hook. And if you find that you don't like it or can't get used to it, you're not out a whole lot of money. So those are my thoughts and my reviews and my work with them. And I hope that this is helpful in some way as I review something other than yarn. If you enjoyed this, and if you are still here and still listening to me, why don't you go ahead and do all those YouTube-y things, like subscribe if you're not. I'd appreciate that. Hit the like, send me a comment, you know, any of that stuff. It helps the channel, it helps YouTube send more people my way. And if you leave me a comment, I'm absolutely certain to respond, because there's nothing I like better than chatting about fiber and fiber arts and all of the good stuff that goes with it. And yeah, nobody around here wants to talk to me about it anymore. So I am more than happy to chat with you in the comments about it. So until next time, friends, happy stitching.